kick this off. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at this month's WLEAD Speaker Series event. My name is Melissa Servog. I am one of this year's WLEAD co-chairs, along with my colleague, Bianca Durant. If this is your first WLEAD event, then welcome. We're glad to have you. If you've attended before, then welcome back. Before we get started, I wanted to give everyone a brief overview of WLEAD. WLEAD stands for Women in Leadership, Empowerment, and Diversity. This committee formed about 7 years ago as champions of inclusivity and diversity. We are committed to D&I education and awareness, supporting professional growth of our employees, and uniting our workforce and community. We are thrilled to host the WLEAD Speaker Series each month as it brings together members of our community, builds connections, and creates awareness of important topics. I'm thrilled to introduce our speaker today. His name is Dan Bigley. At just 25 years old, Dan was mauled by a grizzly bear at a popular south-central Alaskan fishing spot, leaving him permanently blind. After the mauling, he earned his master's degree in social work and now serves as CEO and president of Denali Family Services, a child placement agency and behavioral health provider. Dan will recount his journey and share the important work being done to support youth. And with that, I'd like to welcome Dan Bigley.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time talking about leadership, talking about company culture, innovation, and just all things kind of life, I guess, which, yeah, we'll get to later. But in many ways, it's all inseparable since we spend most of our time, most of our waking hours at work anyway. Life and work are very much closely connected. And yeah, so anyway, kind of the way we live our lives has a lot to do, I think, with our impact, both in the broader world and certainly in our work. And so, yeah, I was invited here to speak a little bit on my story and my thoughts on leadership. And for me, I think that really leadership starts with the basic question of, how does one make other people feel? How do, so that's something I reflect on, is how do I make others feel around me? And it's an integral part of my whole story, because how we make others feel is essentially what contributes to adding value to the lives of others around you, and to the world or the community around you as well. It has a lot to do with community building, like your own sense of community and place in it, but also, of course, the broader community. And for me, I think, I'm going to go way back here to, she mentioned 25. Clearly, I'm not 25 any longer. That was quite a long time ago. But the story kind of takes me back to my early 20s, adolescent years, finishing up my undergrad program. And at that time of my life, as an adolescent, things that were important to me about the community were things like environmental, social, and economic justice. I really had a deep desire, I think, to make a difference in the world and add value in the world and in the issues that were important to me. And at the time, yeah, that was it. It was like environmental issues, economic and social justice issues, and things like that. If you were to talk to me now, fast forward, I might, those things are still very important to me as well, but I might include some other concepts like conscious capitalism. And, this was kind of an idea that really would have resonated with my younger self as well, especially around some of the corporate culture issues with environmental degradation and use of resources and things like that. Also in regards to how business utilize resources, whether it was human resources, environmental resources, or otherwise. So this idea of conscious capitalism is a rapidly emerging kind of idea. It's been kind of emerging, for quite a while now, at least the last decade, but becoming more and more prevalent. And this is the idea that it's not just owners and founders and shareholders that we're focused on in terms of where we're adding value, but it really is every stakeholder of any given business. And so it could be, clients, customers, employees, in the broader community in terms of what value are we adding for not just our owners, founders, and stakeholders, but really for all stakeholders. So anyway, when I was 25, and deeply passionate about making a difference, in honest reflection, self-reflection, would have been that I was really not much more than a fully recreating ski bum, mountaineer guy, backpacker, wilderness wanderer, pretty self-indulged in all things recreation. And it wasn't a bad place to be at that time, but I knew that there was definitely more, and it wasn't fulfilling sort of this need that I had to feel like I was making a difference in the world and adding value. And it all kind of came to a peak one day. We had a guest lecturer come into one of our classes. I was at Prescott College, and I was actually in a backcountry ski class at the time, learning about avalanche forecasting and winter mountaineering and this type of thing. A wonderful way to spend 3 months in college. But anyway, the speaker shared a story about this student of his in a college class at Brigham Young University named Susie, and they had spent some time whitewater rafting in Canyonlands National Park, and one day they had stopped and they had gone into back into this cave, and deep into this cave they sat around, and the whole class of students talked, and they had a lecture, and Susie and her friend had buried themselves in the sand, and Susie was always very playful. She was very fun to be around. She made other people around her feel very good. She was also deeply passionate about issues of social justice and equality. So she definitely not only made people feel good, but really helped them think about things in different ways. I would definitely say she was making a difference in the world and adding value to the people around her, to the community around her. And, the story unfortunately had a tragic ending that shortly after this class, where Susie had made an impact on all of her fellow students and on her college professors, she was killed by a drunk driver, and in something that had a really big and profound impact in her community because of the impact that she had made and the way that she had made others feel. And so this professor told this really heart-wrenching story about returning to that cave with some fellow students of Susie's. And because it was in Canyonlands in the desert, and because it was in a cave, she had, quite literally, she had left tracks in the sand that were still there in this cave. And you could still see where she and that co-student of hers had buried themselves in the sand. You could see where they laid and the tracks leading in and out of it. And as he shared this story, I was just, at the end of it, I was filled with sort of like this deep wasn't even sure where it was coming from, but it was a deep sadness. And it just kind of, I skied off into the wilderness by myself that evening, and just, I actually cried. And I remember just reflecting on and feeling like, man, like it's time to do more than just, ski and climb and play. Like it's time to leave my tracks in the sand, like Susie had done, and be more mindful and conscious and aware of the impact I'm making, because I knew on some level that in my goal for happiness, in my quest for fulfillment, that having the sense that I was making a difference and contributing and adding value to the people around me and to the community was a big part of what was going to bring me that sense of fulfillment and that sense of happiness. So it was shortly thereafter I graduated from Prescott College, where I hopped in the truck and packed it full of all my gear, my guitar, my dog, and we faced north. And the words in my mind were, hurry and take the road to the roadless areas, for they won't be roadless long. And we drove north to Alaska, and ended up settling down into Girdwood, upon my arrival. And things were going really well in my life during that time. And, you know, falling into a real sense of community there in Girdwood, and just gotten a new job with AK Child and Family as an activity therapist, basically helping kids connect out in the outdoors through rec activities, and helping them learn healthy ways of coping, living, helping them process challenges in their lives, and working on therapeutic goals that were established by a mental health clinician. I had also gotten the attention of a really wonderful woman from Minnesota during that time of my life, and had just purchased a cabin nestled high in the Chugach Mountains. And it wasn't much of a cabin. It was still wrapped in Tyvek. The outhouse didn't even have a door. But it didn't really matter much to me, because I could look out over the Chugach, see over the Turnagain Arm and the Cook Inlet, and over Anchorage, and I could see all the way north to Denali on a clear day. So I like to joke that even though the outhouse didn't have a door, like I could sit in there and have $1 million view. So what I didn't realize, though, is that you know, in that time of my life, that I would have like this tragedy sort of on my doorstep, because one afternoon, as I hugged Amber and said goodbye to her, I told her, "Hey, I'll call you when I get off the river." And that was a day that would sort of forever change my life, because after fishing, we returned back to the trailhead there at the Grayling Trailhead at the Russian River. And we were all the way back to where the trailhead was when we had an encounter with a brown bear. And she was pretty agitated. It was clear that this encounter was different than many others that we had had. She was stomping her feet, her hair raised on end, huffing, puffing, growling. My friend John and I just kind of decided, hey, let's just back away, head upriver, and take a long way back around to a completely different trailhead. And so we did, and we were able to kind of clear the area, and we were like, oh man, whew, that was crazy. And we just started to relax and kind of pick up the pace. When all of a sudden in front of us, the alders started shaking vigorously on the trail. And we didn't realize it at the time, of course, when we had the initial encounter with the brown bear. We thought we'd been cut off by her. But in hindsight, what we now know to be true is that we had walked straight toward